Welcome to Excel and Excel. Today we're going to have a look at pivot tables and an introduction to pivot tables, the functionality of the pivot table, and what some of the things you can do. And it's a really good introduction, and it's sort of a segue to some of the more complex parts of the pivot table functionality. Okay, so what is a pivot table? Well, a pivot table is a way that you can summarize information within a data set. You can sort of slice it up and manipulate it and report on different things within that data. So the data set being like a table consisting of columns and rows of information and cells with particular data in there. The pivot table allows you to take that information and be able to report on it in a customized format. And as you can see from this, the data set here, it contains quite a lot of information, and it's quite detailed and really extremely important. But it's probably a bit too much information for anyone to sort of look at and analyze quickly. You want to be able to take that information and be able to categorize and group it, especially when you're producing reports. So pivot tables are really good for that. For example, you're looking here at the product code and a customer name, and you might just want to look at information that relates to the Tokyo store and the total sales. So to be able to go through and use your formulas and sort this data itself the traditional way before pivot tables came about, well, then it would take a lot longer. You can still do it, but it would require different calculations to take a heap of time. So the pivot table it really fast tracks, and it's super easy to use, but it fast tracks that ability to really slice and dice the information that you need. Just to be aware, when creating a pivot table or having a data set of information that's going to create a pivot table, it has to be organized in columns and rows, and the columns have to have headers. So every single column needs a header. If there was one, for example, that was missing a header, it wouldn't allow you to create a pivot table. So you need to be able to have headers across each of those columns. That is what sort of creates the fields and allows you to drag and drop within the pivot table to get the desired reporting and information that you need. Okay, so there's a few ways to create a pivot table. The first way being Excel can help you create one, or you can create a customized pivot table yourself. But both times you go up to the Insert tab, and then you can go, the first way is recommended pivot tables. And basically that's Excel saying, hey, I'm analyzing the information that you have, and I'm going to suggest some pivot tables that I think are suitable for this data. And you can sort of see how it organizes the information. So this first one, for example, is a sum of the landed LDP by customer name. So it's basically saying, I'm going to get you your cost of the products, a summary of the cost of the products by customer. Or you might go, no, actually a sum by wholesale is probably more appropriate because that's the information that you're after. But as you can see, there is a load of different recommended pivot tables that you might want to use. But to be honest, most of the time you're better off just creating a customized pivot table from scratch yourself. But that option for the recommended pivot tables is there for you. The second way to create a pivot, and which you'll probably use most of the time, because you really do want to customize this report, is you go up to the Insert, and then go across. On the far left, you've got the pivot table option there. And basically, you click on that, and it selects all the data within your data set, and it uses that information, obviously, to create the table. When you're actually creating a pivot table, you have two options down the bottom here. And one is create a pivot table in a new worksheet. So it'll create a new worksheet for you and put the pivot table on that worksheet. Or you can choose an existing worksheet, and then you specify the location of that. So for example, you click on the existing worksheet, you go to the location, and maybe I want to put it on this tab here, started in cell A1, and that would create the pivot table in that actual position. And that's really good if you've got multiple pivot tables on the one worksheet and you want to put them side by side and sort of create a dashboard of some sort where you can report on different things visually or within a table, all on the same worksheet. But let's go back to create a pivot table within a new worksheet. It's selected automatically the table with the information that you need, and you just press OK. Now, once that's done, it opens up your new tab, which is on this, in this case, is this new worksheet, which is called Sheet 3. And we might just call that Pivot Table Report. Now, this is where you can manipulate and drag and drop information that you need into this table. So this is the platform in which the fields, what we call fields down here, are selected to report on information that you want to have a look at. Now, down the bottom here, you have 4 windows. A filter, which is an overall filter for the table, which I'll show you in a minute. One is a column window, which selects what information you want to run across the page in column format. Then you have your rows, what information you want to appear down the left-hand side as a row. And then you have your values, which you would drop in the values such as quantities or sales values if you're running sales reports, or you can do a combination of both. But they're the 4 windows that you use. And these fields that run up here in this area are basically all your headers across there. So all your headers, and that's why you have to have a header in each of those columns, because that's what's going to appear in your pivot table down here. So let's quickly just create a basic pivot report or a pivot table that sort of gives you an idea and an understanding of what you can actually do. So maybe we just want to look at the customer name and then say the total sales quantity. And there you go. There's all your customer names, all your stores. So you've got your Barcelona stores, your Brisbane stores. It's dropping your customer name down the left-hand side in the rows there, and it's putting in the total quantity of sales. So it's you need to know that it's a total. So even though, for example, Barcelona store itself appears on multiple rows, the pivot table is summarizing that information. So it's a sum of all those sales. You can break it down further. I mean, if you drag and drop the product and further detail, it will continue to build that report as detailed as you want or as a high level as you actually want. The columns itself, let me give an example. Maybe we want to look, instead of the customer running down the rows, maybe we will turn the customer off and we will put the product name. So we're looking at the product names. Okay, we know that in total across all the stores, the Boys Elfie acrylic beanie has sold 586 units. Maybe what we want to do is go, okay, let's compare we wanted to look at the stores in Spain, for example. So we could potentially drop the customer names across, and then you see the actual columns are all the stores. So it allows you to sort of break down for this style in the acrylic beanie. Barcelona Downtown sold 13 of them, 12 in Barcelona Fashion Store, Berlin sold 24. So you can see side by side the information. It creates a really visual way to as a comparison of data and information, especially really good for reporting. You could also potentially, what you can do here, if you just wanted to look at this, at Spain, you could apply a filter. Just look at those two. And you've got your Barcelona, 2 Barcelona stores and your total sales. And then there's the grand total there. So you can see side by side. This is really good also for if I wanted to drop in dollar values. So you could take your dollars down there. And at the moment, that's not reporting those figures as a dollar. Like it's a numerical value, but we might want to change that to express it as a dollar term. So you can go into there as a currency. Okay, there you go. So you could go, okay, what's the dollar value of the sales of the acrylic beanie in Barcelona downtown and Barcelona fashion? So they sold $105 worth and they've sold $87 worth. You can really quickly see a comparative information. You could even take the product, the actual description of the product away. There's even higher level. Okay, let's have a look at the comparison. 100 grams worth of sales in the downtown store, and the fashion store is $97,000 worth, 9,000 units, 9,100 units, and 8,700 units. So it's really quick ways. You could, again, apply the overall filters in this window here. And the way to do that, maybe I'll drop the product code back in and I'll move the customer name, and we will take the sales quantity and a wholesale quantity and convert that again to currency. Okay. So there we go. Now at this high level, so this filter here, appears at the top there. So it's separated from the main table, but what this actually does is it filters information that appears in that below table. So you can see we've just selected the two stores, but it's basically, you can turn on and off different parameters that you want to report on. So if we want to report on everything, you can see the total sales, 586 units and about $4,000 worth of sales. But maybe we just want to look at Barcelona stores. Okay, there you go. 25 units and $192 worth of sales. So this applies a filter to all the information in the actual table itself. So they're the four windows that you use, and it's unlimited as to what information that you want to report on. Say I wanted to look at it by color. So you're planning, what are your best selling colors? It shows your total sales for all by color. Okay, birch, 1,800, and black, 100,000 units. So you're looking at different ways to look at the information within a data set. So really quick way to do that, and it's awesome for planning, for reporting, leading or lagging indicators of information. So that's a real brief introduction to it, and we'll further go on into more detail a little bit later, because you can apply formulas, embed formulas within this. You can do the conditional formatting that allows you to highlight. You can do sum ifs and top 10. It's just endless what you can actually do, but that's basically the principle behind the pivot table itself, and how you can take information from a large data set that is very detailed and necessary, but you want to look at it and slice and dice it and look at it in a different way.